The rain lashed against the windows of the sprawling Whitmore estate as Adrian Whitmore leaned back in his leather chair, swirling a glass of 100-year-old brandy in his hand. He was 31, clean-cut, ambitious, and heir to one of the largest real estate empires in the country. Everything he had, from the car with massage seats to the watch that cost more than most people's houses, was paid for long before he was born. And yet, something about the mansion felt hollow. It was the day after his grandfather's funeral. Leonard Whitmore, the man who built the empire from the ground up, or so everyone said, had passed quietly in his sleep. Adrian had never thought much of his grandfather beyond the photos in the hallway and the occasional nod of acknowledgement at family gatherings. The man was a legend, a business giant, a monument of success. But that was all he had ever been to Adrian, an icon, not a person. As the storm thundered outside, Adrian's curiosity led him to the west wing of the mansion, a place his grandfather had always kept locked. With the old man gone, the staff had opened the wing, and Adrian wandered through it with the mild interest of a tourist. The air was heavy with dust and age, and the flickering sconces cast long shadows on the ornate wallpaper. He pushed open a door at the end of the hallway and stepped into a small study, modest compared to the rest of the mansion. A fireplace sat cold and empty beneath a portrait of Leonard Whitmore, but not the suave magnate the world knew. In this painting, he looked younger, weary-eyed, and dressed plainly. On the desk sat a leather-bound journal with the name Leonard Whitmore etched in fading gold. Adrian hesitated, then opened it. October 14, 1962. I slept under the bridge again tonight, fourth night in a row. My shoes are soaked and my coat has more holes than fabric. I miss Mom. I miss warm food. I miss being someone. Adrian blinked. Was this some kind of fictional story his grandfather had written? A character study? He turned the page. October 28, 1962. Found a job, dishwashing at Margot's Diner. The owner, Mrs. Kramer, said I reminded her of her son. She gave me a sandwich and let me sleep in the supply closet. First warm night in weeks. The entries continued, raw and vivid. They spoke of hunger, of cold nights, of rejection and despair, but also of moments of kindness, a stranger offering a blanket, a hot meal, a job. Adrian's mind reeled. This couldn't be the same Leonard Whitmore who wore hand-tailored suits and spoke at Ivy League business schools, but the handwriting matched the notes Adrian had seen his grandfather jot down in board meetings. He read on, devouring the story like a starving man at a banquet. May 3rd, 1964. Today I bought my first property, a rundown duplex in a crumbling part of town. All the money I saved, every cent from tips and scrubbing dishes, went into that building. People think I'm crazy. Maybe I am. But I see something in it, like I see something in myself. The journal chronicled the rise, painfully slow, with crushing setbacks. Leonard had been cheated, evicted, beaten down by banks, betrayed by partners. But he got back up, every time. What stunned Adrian wasn't just the story, it was the man. His grandfather hadn't been born into wealth. He had crawled out of the gutter, through mud and misery, and built an empire brick by brick. And he had never told anyone. The silence in the study grew louder as Adrian sat with the journal in his lap. A line toward the end caught his eye. July 10th, 1991. I built this mansion not as a monument to my success, but as a reminder of my beginning. Every stone here is a silent prayer of gratitude. If my grandson ever reads this, I hope he understands. We are not defined by what we have, but by how we rise and how we remember. Adrian closed the journal, heart pounding. He looked around the study again, this time with new eyes. The room wasn't grand because of its furniture or tapestries. It was grand because of what it represented: humility, grit, and gratitude. Suddenly, the marble halls of the mansion felt less impressive. They were no longer symbols of entitlement, but of resilience. That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. The rain had stopped, but the storm inside him hadn't. He thought about the people he'd dismissed: waiters, janitors, employees working 14-hour shifts. He thought about how easily he had judged those without, believing they simply hadn't tried hard enough. The next morning, Adrian made a quiet decision. He started by visiting the foundation his grandfather had funded, but never bragged about. one that helped homeless families find shelter and work. Adrian doubled its budget. Then he sold his custom sports car and used the money to create scholarships for underprivileged students who couldn't afford college. And finally, he renovated the abandoned building in the poorest part of town, just like his grandfather had done decades ago, and turned it into a community center. When people asked why the sudden change, Adrian would smile and say, "Just honoring a legacy." But the truth was deeper. The mansion he inherited was more than walls and wealth. It was a living lesson. Years later, when Adrian was an old man and a young journalist asked him for the secret to his success, he led her into the West Wing. He handed her a dusty leather-bound journal and said, "Read this. Then tell me what you think success really means." Moral: no matter how high we rise, we must never forget where we began. Humility and gratitude aren't signs of weakness, they are the roots of real strength.